Looks like it. All right. I was about to say good morning, but I should be saying good afternoon, I guess is the right one. I have to put myself in the right place.
That's
How are you
true.
doing today, Morten?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm good. It's just the start of the morning, but the sunrise looks pretty, and that's not a bad way.
Monday morning.
Oh, that's the worst part of it. Like, we don't remember the day of the week. Just
well, I already made it to 2 o'clock, so.
And it was a good day. Am I expecting a good day for me here too then?
Yeah, it's not bad. Could be worse.
Could be worse. Okay, I can do that. That works for me. For the people who are tuning in, I have the pleasure today of speaking with Morten Linde. He's the co-founder of Studio YOLK, and I'm so excited to explore what that means today, Morten, and your background in the art, the design world. So thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So if anyone has ever tuned in before, we usually start at the beginning. I'd love to understand, Morten, a little bit about your personal background and your art and design interest.
Yeah, okay. So I'm educated a furniture designer. Back in 1990, I graduated in Copenhagen. And then I was fortunate to get a job working with the Bang & Olufsen, designing their products, the hi-fi stereo brand. And I made a couple of things for them, which was a great experience. Employed by one of the great masters of industrial design, David Lewis. So that was 2 very good years for me in learning process. And then I started my own office in 1992. And I was lucky to win a couple of competition, both invited competition and open competitions. And that kind of helped me get started. I worked a lot for like what had been the national Danish phone company, designing a lot of their phones and so on. But if you imagine that like a phone in the 1990s compared to what you have today, it's a lot of things that happened, yeah. So I did a lot of different things, a little bit of furniture, but mostly product design. I work for brands like George Jensen, the Danish silversmith company, and Carlsberg. I did some things for Hewlett Packard, and then I've always had a passion for watches, because I think there's something really, really beautiful about mechanical watches. It's like an everlasting machine. I got my first mechanical watch when I was 18, and I passed it on to my son when he became 16, and he was like, "Oh, thank you, Daddy, it's wonderful." And there's not a lot of things that I got when I was 18 that I can pass on to my son, and he would be really happy, like my shoes or my phone or whatever, So it's this fantastic thing that you wear it all the time. It tells you about the most essential thing in life, which is time, and if it breaks, you can fix it. If you don't want to have it anymore, you can sell it or you can pass it on. So that's just a fantastic thing. And that led me to working with different watch companies. I worked for Tag Heuer and some other Swiss watch brand. I also did a large series for a Dutch fashion brand. And then in 2002, I got this idea together with one of my friends that we wanted to start a watch brand, and we did. So we started Linde and Verdelin, which today is kind of a established independent brand, and we started from nothing, just the idea and the concept, and then I had the idea that I knew a lot about watches because I've been working for different companies, and I thought I knew a lot about production as well, which I didn't, but I learned throughout the years. Yeah? And my job in Linde Berlin was basically to create the universe around the brand. Of course, designing the watches, designing the cases for the watches, the retail environment, and I was part of, so you could say creative director or whatever. And I did this for 17 years until I decided to stop with Linde and do something else. And at that point, so this was back in maybe 2019. And at that point, I didn't really know what would be next. But of course, I knew that it would be something with design. And maybe I should say that, like, in the years that I had Linde, or back actually in 2008 and some years ahead, I started to become a psychotherapist. And this was not really because I didn't really have the feeling that I wanted to practice as a psychotherapist, but it was more for personal reasons and, to kind of develop, I could take a computer program or I could do something else. And then I was like, psychology, I think is interesting. And also psychology in design, I think is really interesting. What is it that talks to you in a design? Yeah. How does it make it feel? And for me as a designer, how do I express what I feel? How do I find out what is really me? Yeah? So in that sense, it was interesting. And then, I have a family, I've got 3 kids and a wife. And in this perspective, psychotherapy is also interesting. Yeah?
Oh, I'm sure.
And so there's a lot of stuff to, if you want to look in this direction, there's a lot of things that you can use it for. Yeah? And so that was up to 2019. And then I was at a lot of different meetings, finding out what I wanted to do. And then one of the meetings, the person I spoke to, she said, so what does your family do? And I was like, well, my wife, she's a visual artist. My daughter, she's a fashion designer from the Royal Danish Academy. And my son, he's studying fine arts at the Rietveld Academy in Amsterdam. And she was like, wow, what a family. And I hadn't really thought about it, because for me, it was like a normal progression of what we did. Yeah? And that made me kind of think, when I went home to the family, I was like, I was at this meeting and this woman that I met with, she said, wow, what an energy. And that was kind of the turning point for me. I think maybe the rest of the family, they had thought more about it than me. Yeah? But I thought, wow, what if we take all this creative energy? And I felt that it was really great that we were not from the same area. Yeah? So we covered fashion, visual artist, fine art, and furniture and product design. What if we took all of these energies and put them together in one studio? So we had a lot of talk about it, and then we decided to do it. And then we started YOLK, Studio YOLK, as we call it. Yeah? And we had this feeling that, a little bit going back to what I said about the watch. I mean, if, when I was younger, yeah? If you played with the idea, which is a terrible idea, but anyway, the house burns down, yeah? And you got a couple of minutes to save something. Of course, you would take your family and get them out of the house. But then when I was young, it was like you would take the family photo album, and you would take your record collection. Yeah? But today, I mean, the family photos, they are there somewhere. I don't know, but in a cloud, whatever. Yeah? And the same thing with the music. And you don't have, a lot of people, I don't have any more CDs or so it's kind of, it's not there. So what really has value today? What do you really want to, what do you really care about in materialistic things? Yeah? And maybe you don't care about anything, but maybe there are some things, it could be jewelry, it could be that has maybe belonged to your grandmother or whatever. I thought that because I had collected a lot of furniture, I thought that I actually cared about these furniture. But then we sold our house, and when we sold it, I was like, well, we agreed that let's sell the furniture as well. Because if I really liked this specific chair, then it was mass produced and I could just go out and buy it again if I regretted. Yeah? And I found out that I didn't actually regret it. But the thing that we cared about when we moved was the art we had collected that was hanging on the wall, and some small sculptures. And it was like the only thing, you know, from a house that we had lived in I think 14 or 15 years. I found that nothing really had a big value except for these things. And then I thought, you know, okay, we're living in a world where we have overproduction and mass production. So, okay, might be an idea not to go down this road when we start YOLK, but do something that is produced in small quantities by local craftsmen who care about what they do. And I say local, I'm not particularly interested in saying Danish craftsmen, because I don't really care about if they're Danish or if they're Swedish or German or whatever. It's not the thing that it's Danish, but local. And that's only to not to use too much on transport and stuff like this. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And also I really enjoy working with craftsmen. So that's it's a good thing if I don't have to fly to whatever country to talk to them, but I can just go there because they're local. And this was what we did. So,
what an epic journey. No, I think it was so great, Morten, to just really understand the trajectory from one, not really one discipline to another, but like one focus to another, and how they all bled into the story in ways that made it richer.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing is that it's kind of a line, yeah, that you know, when you walk on it, it's like this, and you go back and forward, but you know, talking about the psychotherapy, you know, I have the responsibility for my own life, yeah? And I have the responsibility to make it whatever out of it I can do, yeah? But make the best out of it and make it as interesting for me and for the people that surround me as possible. And so it's really about, for me, taking experiences that I've had, good or bad, and turn them into something that I can use in the future. Yeah?
Yes, I am currently studying social work, and we are interdisciplinary in that we take knowledge from psychotherapy as well. And I think from what you're saying, it sounds a lot like the theory that we are our own autobiographical authors. So we can say this terrible thing that happened was a source of great strength, or we can say it was a roadblock we never overcame. Like, we get to make that decision and in crafting our story. And so that really resonates with me, how you're describing it. What I think is really cool in your story too is, like, maybe from someone who has no background in design, they see telephone, they see stereo, furniture, like they're all in their own separate lanes for the outsider. But are there some universal design principles or you know, things that carried through that made it possible to make those jumps across different, you know, focal objects?
Well, I don't, but I'll tell you once, you know, when I applied to go to the design school in Copenhagen, yeah? And it was really difficult to get in. So I applied at a school or two schools in London as well. And I went to an interview in one of them, and there was like a couple of professors there, and I showed them what I'd done and blah, blah, blah. And one of them, I think he was in product design, he said, so which area do you want to design? And I was, I think, probably 18 or something at the point. And I said, well, you know, I don't really care. I just want to, you know. And he laughed, yeah. And afterwards, I was like, but why did he laugh? Yeah, because for me it was just, you know, it was just so natural that I could do whatever I want. Yeah, but I learned later that it takes a long time to become good at doing something. Yeah? I mean, I spent 17 years in the Swiss watch industry, just every day refining and. But having said that, and I know actually why I didn't do furniture earlier. I did a little bit of furniture off. When I look back at the furniture I did it together with a couple of my friends that were furniture designers as well. But I know why I didn't do it, because in Denmark we have such a long history in furniture design, and we have so many really great furniture designers, like Wiener, Kjærholm, Bermons and Panton. You can just keep on. So we have like a backpack of really, really heavy furniture design. And I was like, I can't, how can I compete with these guys? Yeah. And the other thing was, I didn't actually grow up with Danish design, because my parents, they were not particularly fond of Danish design. So I didn't have the same roots or the same background as a lot of the other guys I was studying with. So I didn't really understand it. I thought, this chair by Arne Jacobsen, I don't like it. Yeah. And I learned how to like it. Yeah? So what I did in school, it didn't look like the other guys or girls. Yeah? And I thought, okay, that's kind of bad. Yeah? And then I started just working in other industries. But I think over the years, I've been lucky that I got so much positive feedback on my design. So I thought, okay, now when I'm 55, now it might be the time to start doing furniture as well, and just do whatever I think is right. And I don't care that much anymore if people like it or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if it's in the Danish design philosophy or whatever. And it actually comes back to this thing about Danish design, which I think, for me, honestly, it just has a bad tone, talking about something being a national way of expressing. Because what if you live in Denmark but you're not Danish? Yeah? What if you whatever? Yeah. So there's so many combinations that I would rather just take it out and then say, okay, if you think it's Danish design because you were born in Denmark, well then I don't think what I do is particularly Danish. Yeah? You can talk about functionalism, minimalism, whatever in that sense, yeah, but not a country in terms of design. I think it has a bad ring to it. Yeah?
That's so insightful. And now I completely see it, and I feel the same way, but I wouldn't have realized it if you hadn't mentioned it. So thank you. On the lines of talking about, like Danish design, you also mentioned, like collectible design versus maybe what's more utilitarian. How does YOLK fit into that landscape? Like, can you speak to a little bit of like your design approach? Is there a style that you feel like resonates with it? Is it, like you said, completely just like whatever comes out of your head? What's that like?
What I found is that, I mean, for me, yeah, it's a little bit different for my wife and for my two kids that are also involved in YOLK. But for me, if you give me like a slideshow of 100 different images of design, yeah, architecture or design or whatever, or if I scroll through Instagram and I get 200 pictures, I can feel in my body when there's something I like, yeah, and when it makes me calm inside, or when it kind of speaks to me in a way. And I could just, I learned that what speaks to me is quite simple geometrical shapes that are put together somehow. Yeah? And I kind of can't really relate to organic design that are, that just are not geometrical shapes. It just doesn't talk to me. I don't get like a physical reaction that is, wow. Yeah? It's like I don't get it. Yeah? Some other people get it, and well, that's fine. But I can see it doesn't really work for me. And when I look back on the things that I've done, then it's like 99% of it is just geometrical shapes that are put together somehow. Yeah?
Wow. Imagine
And
amazing how many things you can do with geometrical shapes and just keep.
yeah, but I mean, that's, you can keep on exploring and exploring and exploring, and you can put on more and more. I mean, I think there are, I don't know, 6 or 7 or 8 geometrical shapes, like a box and a round and a triangle, and you can put them together in various ways, and you can combine them. So, but that's what works for me, and I kind of decided that, okay, when I look back on what I've designed that I like, it's this. Yeah. So now I'm like, okay, for a long period I'll only do this. Yeah? And then one day, maybe I'll get tired of it, and then I'll start doing something else. Yeah? But it also works together with the rest of the family in Yoke.
And I'm so excited to explore those pieces with you, which we'll do in just a moment, about some of the things you're working on. But I want to reflect also, you mentioned your watch company and how you worked in that discipline for 17 years, and it was more, well, it was a partnership, but it wasn't with your family. It was a different type of work. When we had got to know each other, you talked about that being a really like a less collaborative maybe experience versus how you work now. How do you, I mean, your family, they're all in art and design, but in very different disciplines. What does collaboration look like for you?
Well, it's quite interesting, because when I did the watches, or also when I've done other projects in my design office, I was like, oh, this is mine, nobody's gonna touch it, and every 1/10 of a millimeter I knew on the watch case, and I'm kind of very devoted to my work, and I spend a lot of time thinking about it. But what I found out with Yoke was that I could design a thing, and then I could easily pass it on to Pernille or to Amanda or to Carl, because they are, I'm so close to them that it's like, I mean, could you imagine designing something and then passing it on to your daughter or your wife or your son? Yeah, that's just, I mean, for me, it feels great. Yeah? And then see what comes out of it when they start working on it. And it's only been a positive thing until now. And I think if I don't like it, then I'll just say it, and then, we'll have a talk about it. And I think, I mean, until now, it's worked. I mean, it's, of course, it's not every day where it's like, oh, it's wonderful working together. And especially, Pernille is my wife, so we're like together 24 hours a day now. Yeah. So, sometimes it's like, okay, oh, great, you're going out with your friend, wonderful.
Like, see ya.
Take your time. See ya.
COVID has been so interesting for our family dynamics, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm happy I'm a psychotherapist, and my wife as well, in this sense. So when crises come, we can kind of try to deal with it.
Amazing. And one more thing before we pivot to the work is even the name of Yoke was a really great process in your family of how it came to be, and kind of like spur of the moment. I wonder if you could touch on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, it took like 6 months to find the right name. I don't know if you or any of your viewers have ever started something, but when you feel like when you're in a startup and you have to find the name, it's like, oh, it's the most important ever, yeah, because it's so much a part of you. And I mean, in the startups that I've been joining, it's just, I don't know, it's always been super difficult to find the name. And I don't know, we maybe bought like 5 or 10 different domains because we thought, now it's there. Yeah, but then 2 days later, I was like, no, it doesn't work. But then, we had this, I mean, because we're a family, I thought, I mean, I didn't actually, because it wasn't me finding the name, but this like a yoke, yeah, it's you have egg yolks, and then you can do a lot of different things with these egg yolks. You have bread, omelets, or a lot of things can come out of an egg. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And there's this magic thing that it's there, and then it turns into a chicken or into various foods or whatever. So that's that kind of transforming of thing. I think was a great thing, and yeah, short and good, and so we kind of, it was like when it was YOLK, everybody was like, yes, okay, and then we did it.
I don't have as disciplined like a design background as you, but my background pre-social work was marketing, and so from a brand name perspective, I think what's great is that it's like sufficiently ambiguous that you can dive into really anything you want, because YOLK means something that's profound, but that applies to whatever you want it to apply to. So A+ in the marketing world for the name of YOLK. Not that you needed that from me, but I will share my screen and we'll talk a little bit about some of the pieces that your family has created, because they were the way that we got in touch. I first saw your work on Instagram and I was like, this is someone I need to know. And you're the first international interview. So I'm very privileged to be sharing this year. So
what an honor.
An honor for me. So we're looking at Lolo right now, which is so cool. Yes. Let's start with the story behind it, because I think that's really special.
The story? The
story behind Lolo and
the story behind it.
The inspiration.
Yeah, that is kind of it's a funny thing, isn't it? Because, previously, especially when I worked for the Linde Berlin watch company, it was watches for men. So it had to be, I had this idea that it should be very masculine, sharp-edged, faceted, sexy, and then one day my youngest daughter and my wife came to me and said, well, okay, the two oldest, they left home. So they said, okay, now we decided that we want to buy a dog. I was like, okay, well, I grew up with dogs and I like them. So I was like, okay, that's fine. And in my imagination, I was like, wow, God, that's this big, like, beautiful dog that, I can run with it, or, like majestic feeling. And I said, okay, well, I've got this suggestion and this and this and this. And they said, no, it's going to be a French Bulldog. I was like, what? French Bulldog?
A little different.
It looks so kind of like, it's really bad design. Yeah, it looks really funny, and I definitely can't relate to it. And then they were like, okay, well, that's it. That's going to be the dog. And I said, okay, well, fine with me, but I'm not going to touch it. I'm never going to walk it, and I don't want anything to do with it. You can have it, and I respect that it's here, but I don't want anything to do with it. And we got the dog, and then, after like a couple of days, when I looked, I couldn't stop smiling because it looked so funny. And I was like, what kind of design? Who designed this? And I was kind of impressed by the design because it made me feel good. Yeah, I smiled and I enjoyed it, and then after a couple of weeks, I was like completely in love with the dog. And I thought, okay, what if I, instead of doing all these masculine, sharp-edged things, what if I designed something that could give the same feeling? Design something that kind of looked a little bit silly, and it didn't really have a purpose, but you just enjoyed looking at it. Yeah? You got in a good mood when looking at it. And that was really the inspiration for the Lolo. So, it's still these geometrical shapes, but then kind of rounded and very positive in the shape. And I just designed the wooden objects, and then I picked them up at the wood turner, and then I gave them to my wife, and she's in the studio just 2 doors down. And then they were at her desk for like a long time, and then suddenly she started painting. I was like, "What? Okay, but why don't the color follow the shape?" So if you take the object on the top right corner, for me it would be natural to say, okay, you have one part which is the bottom part, and that should be one color. Then you have the middle part, that should be another color, and then you have the top part. But she didn't do it this way, yeah? And the colors are kind of not, it's not what you normally would put together. And I would say my wife has a really strong sense for color. And I think, a color sense is something, either you have it or you don't. It's like Beethoven, he sat down at a piano and then he started playing it because he understood the piano.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with color. Either you understand it or you don't understand it, and you could try to do it and you can do okay, but and she has this thing with color that is just putting them together in an awkward way, and they still look great. Yeah?
Yes, they do.
So sorry. Can I just?
Yeah, no, please.
So it's a series. So it's an ongoing series of these wooden objects, yeah? And they're all 45 centimeters high, and they all have a diameter of 30. They're all wood turned by hand, so it's like carving in the wood with hands. And what I found is interesting, and I think that's one of the things that I really wanted to do with YOLK as well that we haven't talked about. It is, okay, we have some issues in our society that I think are worth talking about. And I can use my voice as a designer to talk about them. And for me, Lolos, they are all about, being in a family, being the same, but all are different. And if you translate this into our society, that's how we are. And so we are all the same. We're all human beings, but we're all different. Yeah? But, and which one do you like the best? Well, it doesn't really matter, does it? And who's the most beautiful and who's the whatever? Well, you think one thing, I think another thing. And that's why there's not one shape. And there will never be just one shape. They will always be different. And it's an ongoing series of objects. So what I like to do, what we like to do, is to kind of put these messages into the objects that we do. And I really believe that it's something that becomes more and more important. And I think it's something that larger companies as well should start doing. Companies do it and say, now it's sustainability, but honestly, I think in a couple of years, of course, you think about sustainability. You have to, yeah. But so you need to tell another story, and I many years ago actually it came across my mind. This Lance Armstrong did this rubber bracelet for Nike, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember yellow? Like the yellow jersey from Tour de France, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I thought about, this is just a yellow rubber bracelet, but when people wore it, they told something much more than just wearing a yellow rubber bracelet, yeah.
Right.
And I think that's pretty interesting that you can actually, through a product, tell something that is much more than, is this a nice design, or do you like it, or is it whatever, yeah? Do you like the color? Which yeah, it's interesting, but if I can add a little bit more, that would be great. Yeah?
And that absolutely comes through in your work. I've loved getting to know the stories behind the pieces. I have a slightly, like, maybe more technical question about this one. I saw when you shared the images with me that there was some sort of inscription on this wood? Does that have anything to do with each piece being like individual, or what is that the stamp of the artisan? Like, I just didn't know it.
Yeah, the stamp says yoke and then 20. So it's either you're made in 2020, 2021, and since it's an ongoing series, we just want to put not I don't want to put a number, because I did this when I did watches. They all had a number, and people were like, oh, I want number one because that's the most important. No, I want number whatever. And I feel with this, with the Lolos, it's not, I don't want to give people a certain privilege in getting number one or number two or whatever they think. So it's the year it's made. Yeah?
Very cool.
And number one is not better than number two.
Which is very important. Just how we're all different, we're all valuable. I think it all speaks to the same sort of theme. So this one takes different inspiration from your dog, right? Because Momo is the name of your dog. I loved reading about this one because it took me to like a different world of like this, when you have to escape to an island and what are you bringing with you? And so you'll tell the story better than me, but I'd love for you to speak to this one.
I mean, I thought I was a little bit embarrassed by the story when I told it to my wife, but you know, I think so it came out during the COVID crisis last year, and it was at a period where it was like we didn't know what was going on. You know, how bad is it? What's going to happen? And then in my imagination, it was like, okay, what if everything goes wrong? And you know, I have to escape to an island, and I can only bring one thing, and how should it look? And then I designed this cube with a hole, and I thought, okay, I mean, if you imagine that you're all alone and you only have one object that you can bring, it needs to have certain things. Yeah? It needs to be practical, and so this is hollow. So if I escape to my small boat and there's a storm and the boat is sinking, I can kind of grab this or put my arm through it, and then I can float with it into the deserted island. And then when I get there, I can stand on it, I can pick a coconut, I can hide behind it if something happens, like a wild animal attacks me. I can put in a small talisman in the small square in the center. So it had these kind of things, and I wanted it to be like we could turn it in different, you know, on one side it has this very strong color, and they're all different, all with different viners and colors. So, you know, and I thought, well, we do 5 of them, one for each member of the family, and then they're there, and we'll see, you know, I don't think we're going to use them for the deserted island.
Oh, shucks.
No, but it's just I mean, it's kind of using your imagination and building up stories, and then because I mean, with COVID, it's a lot about fear. I mean, that's kind of the main factor of driving this energy around COVID. So, you know, I mean, you can talk about it in many ways, and you can also make it into a story that's a little bit funny and a little bit overreactive, or what you say, to make people understand, and maybe to make people smile as well. Mm-hmm. And you know, I mean, I have a kind of a pretty good imagination. Yeah? So when these things happen, my imagination starts thinking about how are we going to survive? It's going to be terrible, everything. Nobody's going to, whatever. Yeah. So it came out of the situation that has had a lot of influence on the whole world, yeah? And on the whole world and of each one of us, yeah? In the way that we go out the door every day and way that we are together with other people.
What I have seen as a sort of silver lining, I guess, to COVID is that it's helped us understand, I guess, where our priorities are, and if they're not where we want them to be, how do we change that? And understanding that role of fear it's like upsetting it's in a lot of ways to realize that we are so fearful and so much is out of our control, but maybe the psychotherapist lens, like knowing it and then finding the choice within the fear that we have, can end up being empowering.
Well, I don't know a lot about COVID, and I've chosen not to read too much about it because I get it doesn't have a good effect on me. Yeah?
Right.
But I accept it that it's there and that I have to live with it, and it's my job to get the best out of it in this period. And again, it's back to it's my responsibility to get the best out of my life.
Yes, I love that idea. And so some of the next ones here we'll go through just briefly because I think they're worth noting and they're very special too. This is Lolly Spots, and the name makes me smile even before I look at them. But this one and the Happy Meal table, they're complementary, right? Were they part of the same design process? Or?
Yeah, it's made as one piece of work, yeah. But I just look at this. It's like a one installation, yeah. But of course, if you take one installation, it's going to be terribly expensive. And if you have a lot of money, you can buy the whole stuff, yeah. But I like the idea that you can actually split it up into pieces, and more people can enjoy it, yeah. And not that you have to buy it, but you can just enjoy one lolly spot plate. And I haven't been involved in the project. It's Pernille, my wife, who has done it. But it has to do with there's so much symbolism in serving a meal, and when you think about it, go back to your childhood, how many meals that were served, and the kind of the vibe around the meal. Was it good? Was it bad? Did you want to stay? Did you laugh? Or did you want to escape and you feel, it's terrible, I hate that. It's Christmas, it's birthdays, it's everything has to do with the meal. And I don't know if you can see it, but in all of the plates, so it's vintage plates, all from a foreign country in a language that Pernille doesn't understand. Mm-hmm. And all of them, there's bioresin, and then in the bioresin, it says love. So serving a meal, a portion of love, that's it. So it's kind of this abstraction about, what is served for you both as a child but also as a grown-up, and what do you eat, yeah? And how do you take it in, or can you how much love should you have, yeah? So and it's I don't want to give the viewer a special feeling. It's up to the person itself to get whatever reaction there is. But I think it's a very strong way of saying it, and it's for me a super interesting way of interpretation of the meal and to receive or not receive love, which is very fundamental.
And I think this is, all of your pieces have a practical element and an artful, like a design one, but here especially, my plates are like $5 and I got them at something like IKEA, and they don't make me think of anything. Like, they have a lot of scratches on them because they're not very good, but they don't make me think about the love and the nourishment and how they've been intertwined in my life. And I think, when I was getting to know you, one of the things that stood out was that we don't need utilitarian design anymore. There is an excess of it. There's enough of it. Like we don't, I mean,
No.
the world needs it, but we don't need to make more of it necessarily. Like this
No.
adds so much value because when you look at it, you are making these reflections on your life, and with them maybe deciding how you make it the life that you want it to be. So I really respect that in your work.
But that's, and it comes back to one of the first things that we talked about, and it's really about value. Yeah? So I think the best thing that we can do in yoga, because it is, I mean, what we do is basically just material products. Yeah? It is just, it's just a plate, or it's just a piece of wood or whatever, but it's whatever energy we put in to the object that hopefully can make you reflect or you think about something and make it different from the other plates or whatever. Yeah? And I'm not, I know that we need just regular plates, and I know that we need chairs and we need whatever, but I'm just, there's enough of it. Yeah. And then I have made enough of these objects. So if I can make objects that brings a little bit more value than just it's nice or great, I have 4 chairs around my table, then I'm happier.
Absolutely. You mentioned just now how the materials and the process that goes into it are all making us think. And what I understand from this one, Who Am I? Multiple members of your family contributed to the making process, right? Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So again, I did the wood base, which are basically the 4 legs and then the small things in the bottom. And then my daughter works a lot in bioresin. So it's a resin made from soya beans. So it's not toxic. Yeah. And she has a company beside YOLK where she makes bracelets that are really beautiful. So she's kind of become an expert in this bioresin material. So I designed the bottom part, and then we discussed the size of the top plate, and then she did the color combination there, and then my wife did the colors for the base part, and I think also actually Amanda and my wife Pernille, they spoke about the colors in the top part as well. So it was very like a collaboration between all of us, and for me, again, it's like, if you look at this being a Danish designer, you would think, oh, this guy, it's terrible. It looks. I mean, did he ever go to school? Did he ever learn anything? But it is, again, it's about being different. Yeah, and for I think we all have this basic feeling of being different in different perspectives. It can be at your work, it can be in your family, it can be when you go to a party and you think, oh God, everybody is so fancy and I'm just here, looking like the strangest animal in the zoo or whatever. Yeah. So I wanted to get this feeling, yeah, that they were the ones that didn't look like all the other stuff you put into your nice apartment where everything is neat and beautiful. And it's like, what are they? I mean, you can't even use them for anything. Yeah? Maybe you can put a coffee cup on them, but will they fall over? Or, so it was this that kind of my small revolution with functionalism, but then having something where when you look at them, you're like, oh, they look like aliens, or this. It's a little bit like E.T. Yeah, he wasn't cute. I mean, he wasn't good looking, but you liked him. Yeah.
Yes.
And then actually, when I'm first, I did the base part, and I collected them at the cabinet maker, and I took a couple of pictures and sent them to the family, and they was like, oh, wow, interesting. And then Amanda did the top part, and I picked them up at the place where they had done the finished work. Yeah? And then I put them on the wood legs, and I took a couple of pictures and sent them to the family. I said, oh, they've become even more strange. And then I drove the base to the painter. And when I picked them up at the painter, he was like, are you sure it's the right color? Because I haven't painted with these since the 1970s. Yeah. And I said, well, it's not really my decision, but and then we put everything together, and there they are. And it's funny because they were actually selected by, we were contacted by a Danish company called Adorno, and they are making during the New York Design Exhibition, there's a show in a gallery, a Colony gallery in New York, and they said to us, could you please apply to be a part of this exhibition? And we thought, well, yeah, okay, since you asked us. And then they were selected for the exhibition. So I mean, if we're lucky, then they touch something in more people than just us. Yeah.
Oh, that's so exciting. So do you mean that your work will be with them at this exhibit, or?
Yeah, I think during the New York Design Fair, which is from the 13th to the 18th of May, I think. I think depending a little bit on what happens with the COVID situation, yeah. But as I understand, the galleries in the US and in New York, they can open, but then it's by appointment or whatever. Yeah? So I think if they're selected, and I think they will be there, these three, as a part of it. It's a group exhibition with I think 20 other Danish designers and artists.
My family's in New York, and I hope to be there at that time. So if I'm if I make it to the design exhibit and I see your stuff, I'll be messaging you and sending pictures.
Oh, wonderful!
Proud.
Yeah, great.
So I'm very excited. I'm glad to know this piece of great information.
I think now, Colony Gallery, or it's a pretty. I've seen pictures of the gallery, and it looks really nice.
Oh, I'm so excited to do some Googling, and if I can't be there, then to send some of my relatives, because it sounds like a really special opportunity. Morten, the last one here that really caught my eye is Hello Light. I read a recent interview you did where you spoke about using new materials and incorporating them with existing things you work with, and I wondered if this was an example of that, because it felt a little bit different for me than some of the other things you were working on. Maybe it's just the light component, but yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a little bit more masculine this year, but I did it. The rest of the family wasn't involved in this project, but I'm really fascinated about light. I've done quite a lot of lighting and lamps, but what I think is there's the different side of the stories. One thing is that normally you can't really see light. Yeah, okay, so there's light coming from the window up there, but you can't see it. You can only see it when it reflects something. Yeah, but you can't see it here. Only when it reflects my finger. And then I found, you have this theme Nordic light or aural lighting. Yeah. Which you have in the north and the south, what do you say, hemisphere?
Oh, yeah.
Where the sky kind of turns into color. And I thought this is really interesting because you can actually look up and you can see light in the sky. And then I came across this company in Denmark that helped me create this thing, and you have a glass tube. It's actually there. Yeah? Oh,
no way! Yeah,
okay. I don't know if you can see the.
Yes.
Okay, so it's up here, so you get kind of an idea about the dimensions. Yeah, and inside there is a gas called argon, and when it's exposed to electricity, it becomes like a cloud inside. So the gas particles, they are affected by the electricity, and you can actually see light. Yeah, so it's like a fog, yeah, or like a cloud of light, and that kind of, I think that was quite fascinating. Yeah, and at the same time, in Denmark at least, but I think it's a global thing, we spoke a lot about this biodiversity and why are we lacking biodiversity in our nature, and a lot of it is because we as humans, we have this urge to control nature. Yeah? So when we think nature is beautiful, it's in our yards in front of the house, everything is like under control, and the lawn is like perfect, yeah, and the trees are beautiful cut. So I thought, this is it's a little bit the same, yeah. It's my way of control. So I take a piece of nature, which is this fantastic thing, oral lighting or Nordic lighting, and I bring it into an industrial product where I can control it. I can turn off light and turn it off. So now you have the oral lighting, and then it's gone up. So it has this kind of symbolic as well. Is, why do we do it? Why do we feel this urge to control nature, and why? So I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that it's interesting. Yeah. And I think when I turn it on, I still become kind of fascinated by, wow, this blue cloud of light that is captured in a glass tube. So
That's so interesting.
So it's again, it's just like it's an abstraction of a thing that most of us are involved in. If we go to a park in a city, or if we go to the forest or whatever, this, looking at nature, and then I think the whole thing about us not having a large biodiversity in our nature anymore is pretty sad.
It absolutely is. I had to take a philosophy course in college, as many people do, and I think it was probably because I registered too late, but it worked out great, was that my philosophy course was on nature and what constitutes nature. And I think another cool reflection from your piece is, and from, people's manicured gardens, is that still nature? Like, once humans touch it, is it nature? If we preserve it, if we conserve it, is it still nature? Like, there's so many layers to how people define it, what people consider. And like you said, it's not meant for us to convey an answer, but I think your work makes people ask the question, which is so valuable.
Yeah, there's not a right and a wrong, but it's worth asking the question and thinking about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Morten, I've so enjoyed getting to know more about you today, about your family, about your work, to see a little bit inside your studio with your pieces surrounding you. As we wrap up, I want to know just two things, two big things. One of them is, what do you want people to leave knowing about you and your family, and what are you looking forward to?
I think, what we want to do with YOLK is to give people something to think about, maybe start a conversation. And I would also like companies and other designers to think about that there is more to design than just making a beautiful whatever, yeah. And I think there's enough of it out there, and we don't need to produce. I don't want to do a chair that's more beautiful than an Arne Jacobsen or than a Le Corbusier or whatever. We need to do something else. Yeah? We need to move on and think in a different way.
I love that. And what are you looking forward to with Yoke? Is there anything we should be on the lookout for, or anything maybe more abstract that you're looking forward to, or personal, anything that keeps you excited for tomorrow?
Well, I think that, I mean, going out with all these products that are quite personal, I'm really pleased that that they have been received that well, and that people actually find them interesting, and I can see the excitement when I tell the story, and so for me it's wonderful to see that they actually understood. Or we have only, I mean, Yoke has only existed for 4 months, a little bit more than 4 months, and you know, yeah, so it's just fantastic that it's been received that well, and I'm really pleased about that. And you know, I've got a lot of, and we have a lot of other stories to tell, and you know, I enjoy working together with the family. That's a very big privilege today.
Absolutely. You guys are an inspiration to me of how we can apply different, disciplines and backgrounds, and, tell stories that matter, and make people think about the world. So Morten, again, it's been such a privilege. I'm so excited to share this conversation. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much for giving me the possibility and the time.